Um, when we left Europe after the referendum,
Yes.
Europe imposed on the UK a particularly tough, rigid deal that has stunted growth in the UK.
Have you ever watched someone confidently step into a debate, absolutely certain they're about to win the argument, only to walk straight into a wall of facts they didn't see coming? Because that's exactly what's about to happen here. Before we dive into the full story, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. In this clip, we're about to see a caller ring into a live show with one mission: defend Donald Trump at all costs. And you can hear it in the tone from the very beginning. This isn't someone cautiously exploring ideas. This is someone ready to repeat the usual talking points, convinced they've got the winning hand. But here's the problem. When you walk into a serious political discussion armed with slogans instead of substance, it rarely ends well. Especially when the host on the other side isn't interested in letting broad claims slide by unchallenged. This isn't a shouting match. This isn't chaos for the sake of chaos. What makes this exchange so fascinating is that it becomes a real-time collision between narrative and reality. The caller tries to frame Trump as misunderstood, maybe even strategic. The host, she calmly pulls out receipts, context, consequences. And that's when things start to unravel. Because defending a political figure is one thing. Defending specific policies, specific actions, specific outcomes, that's where the pressure kicks in. And when the questions get sharper, when the details matter, when the spotlight gets brighter, you can almost hear the confidence start to wobble. So let's jump into this exchange. Listen carefully to the arguments being made, the way they're framed, and more importantly, how they're dismantled. And once it's all laid out, I'll give you my full thoughts on what this says, not just about one caller, but about a much bigger pattern we're seeing play out on both sides of the Atlantic.
When we left Europe after the referendum,
Yes.
Europe imposed on the UK a particularly tough, rigid deal that has stunted growth in the UK and, threatened our defences as well. I would rather be allied. Trump's 3.5 years left of his tenancy, and then he's gone.
Well, there's some dispute over that, isn't there? There are suggestions that he might refuse to move. We don't know what will happen, but certainly, my problem with people saying he definitely will call another election and it will be free and fair and everything will be fine is that everybody who said that the fears about Trump were exaggerated at the beginning of his second term have been proved wrong. He's been worse, if anything, than people feared. So we do have to consider that possibility, don't we?
Well, is he worse? I mean, I think we could learn a few lessons here from Trump. Not everything he's doing, obviously, is correct, but he is putting his country first, and he's doing the things. Why should he be propping up NATO with funds disproportionate to the other contributors?
Well, hang on. But we're talking about the silencing of journalists. We're talking about threatening of academic institutions, the closing down of the Department for Education, thousands of people losing their jobs through these swinging cuts, thousands of people losing millions of people losing their social security. How is that good for America?
Why should the government and taxpayers be paying for people who aren't doing a job? Why should the department? We're closing down the NHS thing here because there's a doubling of duties and we're wasting money.
Well, we're not closing down the Department of Education, though, are we? We want people to be educated to a high standard. And also welfare payments, so-called welfare payments, are shown to pay dividends in terms of the whole of society. Cutting them saves money in the short term and means that there are more expenses to the exchequer in the long term.
Possibly, but what we're doing here is trying to cut out people who are robbing the taxpayer in welfare payments, and Trump is doing the same thing. He's just not prepared to pay people who are freeloaders. I
don't think that you understand the extent to which Trump is eroding the very fabric of democracy and becoming an authoritarian.
I'm not as clever as you.
It's not a question of cleverness. It's just a question of looking at what he is doing and saying this is an authoritarian figure. This completely changes the world order. America was supposed to be the leader of the free world, and we were supposed to be allied with them, and Europe was supposed to be allied with them. And that has been the case since the end of World War II. The US administration's behavior has fundamentally messed with the dynamic of that, and we need to do something in response. So what should we do? We ally ourselves with the wannabe dictator?
I think I would rather hitch my wagon to America in the long term on the basis that Trump isn't going to be there after 3.5 years than with Europe, who we've been at war with effectively for 500 years in one form or another, and who put us to the sword when we left, even as recently as 2016. They've been
I take
harsh.
issue with your framing of that. They were very clear that there was only one type of Brexit deal that was feasible, and that would be disadvantageous to the UK. You can't just allow people to leave a union and to have more benefits or equal benefits than they had before they left it. That defeats the purpose of a union. They were very clear on that from day one. It's our politicians that lied to us and said that it wouldn't affect us in the way that it has.
Okay, I accept that. I accept that. Nonetheless, Germany, France, Spain, over 400 years, those alliances have shifted tremendously in all different directions. And as I say, I would feel more secure in England with America as my security blanket than Europe as my security blanket.
And what about even if we were able to obtain some favour from Donald Trump, what about the fact that he famously turns on a sixpence, listens most to the last person who was in his ear, changes his mind at the last minute? What about the instability that brings about? I don't know, but I sense that on some of the this would be a massive issue to America. I don't believe that they would want to be bad friends, call it, with the United Kingdom, given the tie-up in security information, having a solid partner on the European front. I think it's a special relationship, and Trump, I think he loved it when Keir Starmer pulled out a letter from the King, didn't he? But then went on to slap tariffs on our steel, so obviously didn't mean that much to him, did it?
Well, we're putting VAT on all of his products. We're putting tariffs on his products. So, again,
in retaliation. Things are changing so quickly. I hear what you're saying, Spencer, and thank you for your call, and thank you for making your debut to LBC.
There is a lot to unpack from that call. And honestly, I made this video especially for those of you watching outside the UK, because this isn't just an American phenomenon. This mindset, it has gone global. A lot of people in the United States think the unwavering loyalty to Donald Trump is something uniquely American. It's not. You just heard it yourself. We've got individuals right here in the UK repeating the exact same narratives, the exact same defenses, the exact same slogans, sometimes word for word, even when those claims fall apart under the slightest scrutiny. Listen carefully to what happened in that exchange. The caller came in confident. He made multiple claims, big claims, bold claims. But when the host calmly pushed back with context and facts, what happened? The confidence started slipping. Suddenly it was, well, you probably know more than me. Or, yes, that's right. The tone changed. The certainty softened. The talking points didn't hold up the way he expected them to. And that's the bigger issue here. We're dealing with a political culture, on both sides of the Atlantic, where some people adopt positions not because they've deeply examined them, but because they've absorbed them. They hear something repeated often enough. It sounds convincing, and it becomes part of their worldview. No deeper dive, no cross-checking, just repetition. Now let's be clear. Supporting a political figure is your right. Disagreeing with a host is your right. But if you're going to step into a public debate, especially on live radio, you need more than slogans. You need substance. Because when substance is required and it isn't there, the cracks show fast. And credit where it's due, the host handled it exactly how it should be handled. Calm, measured, firm, no shouting, no theatrics, just steady fact-based pushback. That's how you dismantle weak arguments. Not with insults, not with chaos, but with clarity. What we need more of is exactly this: real-time accountability. Real conversations where claims are examined instead of just echoed. Because when misinformation or exaggerated narratives go unchallenged, they spread. And once they spread, they harden into belief. That's why moments like this matter. They remind people watching that confidence does not equal correctness. Volume does not equal validity. And repetition does not equal truth. But I want to hear from you. What did you make of that call? Do you think the host handled it well? Do you see similar patterns where you live? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you're new here and you appreciate hearing an outside perspective on American politics from this side of the Atlantic, consider subscribing and joining the community. And if you found this breakdown useful, tap the like button. It really does help more people see the video. I'll see you in the next one.